Boom! 4th of July 2023 is Independence Day. It's the catalyst event for X1. Fireworks are cracking. I can hear it. If you're watching this video before the 4th, good, I might get you prepared. If you're watching after and wondering, what the hell was that? Here's the evidence. eVMPX will have a fair launch. First to enter the contract gets to mint first, and so on until supply last. The supply and price will start at 0, but likely to correlate a bit with BVMPX. We are going back to the roots of crypto creation. The last 10 years have been pre-mine mania. First principles is on the rise, and we're here to make it happen. First principles for the win. We all know what happened with 400 lines of code deployed. Let's see what happens with 50 lines of code. It's time for Independence Day. Xenians, make some noise. Artwork done by the amazing Zen artist. Let's do this. Let's go. First, the disclaimer, nothing of this is financial advice. You speculate at your own risk. Things can and will change. Stay updated, guys, for changes. This is educational content only. Today, Zen Zoo delivers this menu. There will be a lot of new Xenians coming into this space with this mint. This will be considered repetition for many OG Xenians, but I got your back, man. Check out the timestamps below if you want to hear about the mint specifics only. So the first part of this video will be a summary of what Zen is and the impact it has had. Then we will move into X1 and present some of the core functionalities of the 100% community-owned chain. We will be discussing the bridge to facilitate the merge of EVM and Bitcoin. And the last section comes the juicy part, where we go into the specifics of the mint rush of eVMPX on Independence Day. Zen is peer-to-peer cash following the first principles of crypto: decentralization, transparency, peer-to-peer value exchange, counterparty risk resistance, and self-custody. In a short amount of time, we have proven that participants can create value by interacting straight with the protocol, without intermediaries, while having full self-custody of their assets. Zen is also a network and an economy. We have a financial ecosystem with a fully transparent and decentralized monetary policy, where QE and QT is totally dictated by self-sovereign participants who have the power to convert their fairly minted economic energy into something with a different token and inflation structure and utility. And all of this without central authorities governing or dictating the decisions. The best way to describe this relationship is using the concept of yin-yang, interconnected but opposite forces. The harmony in the monetary supply is created by a fully transparent and decentralized network, free from admin keys and centralized control, instead fully in the hands of self-sovereign individuals with various preferences for their self-custodial economic energy, in time, with risk, and choice of conversion. We have created a system with Zen by utilizing Metcalfe's law that states that the financial value or influence of a network is proportional to the square of the number of connected users. This creates a strong network effect with aligned incentives in the network. Our firm belief is that the strongest network effect is created by breaking down the technical, financial, and cultural barriers between the chains, creating new paths for self-sovereign individuals to transact peer-to-peer is the path towards adoption. Using a currency you can trust because you don't have to trust it, since everything is on-chain available to verify. Zen's presence on all chains it's deployed on is very strong. We made ETH deflationary when we deployed the Zen contract on Ethereum. And if you look at any statistics page on any chain, you can witness how strong the demand to mint a currency purely based on first principles is. So what have we done? In 8 months, we deployed over 40 contracts on 11 chains. Our ecosystems have built a multitude of dApps giving Zen utility. We built a worldwide community. We've had over 1 million users interacting with the contracts. We burned over 44,000 ETH. We've stress tested every chain to the max, making them realize if they can't handle 400 lines of code, then how are they possibly gonna scale to billions? We've fought mediocrity where it needs to be fought. We also learned something about human behavior interacting with tech. As long as the users come to the conclusion with the fully transparent information on chain that the value he will get in the future is more than he has to pay in gas now, he will execute the transaction. Which is not only true for EVM, but also Bitcoin, as we have proved. The whole network is powered with the Zen Mint formula. However simple, it holds the complete rules for sustainable and fair value creation. Disinflation, increased minting difficulty, incentivized delayed gratification, aligned incentives, and individual choice. This formula is converted into 400 lines of immutable code, without admin keys, fully immutable, open source, audited, and trustless. No pre-mine of any kind, no team or founder allocations, no VC funding, no admin keys. With a built-in stake function starting at 20% and reducing by 1% every 90 days until it reaches 2% inflation in perpetuity. With a native burn function allowing for decentralized finance and eventually making the supply deflationary. Being deployed on 11 chains and counting makes it censorship resistant. Zen is free plus gas plus time, allowing for the lowest barriers to entry possible into crypto. You only pay the native network fee to initiate the mint and claim your mint after your chosen time period. The initial price and supply was 0. It all works. The question to ask is, how do we accelerate the adoption of Zen? X1. Fair Crypto Foundation is designing X1 as an open source L1 to achieve the original mission of blockchain, following the blockchain tenets of decentralization, transparency, counterparty risk resistance, peer-to-peer value exchange, and self-custody. Where Zen is peer-to-peer cash, X1 is peer-to-peer infrastructure, following the first principles of crypto. X1 is a Zen-powered L1 with 100% community allocation, with synergetic forces for value creation built in, created to foster the adoption of fair crypto at an accelerated rate. X1 will be the result of our unique experience from 11 to the max stress-tested blockchains, utilizing the strong Zen network effect already existing in the Ethereum world, creating demand for Zen for decades to come by building in activity incentives on all the deployed chains, keeping the code base open source and being permissionless, allowing anyone to become a validator if they so choose, and bridging the EVM and Bitcoin ecosystem, both technically, financially, and culturally, while at the same time building fee generation to the X1 with bridge activity. I would claim we have done the most profound activity-based due diligence of any L1 leading up to the design of an L1. Instead of focusing on the tech first, we have focused on, as we underlined the very importance of in the early days of Zen, to break down the barriers of all chains, uniting the users from all chains into a common goal of adoption. The native gas coin on X1 will be XN. In order for the chain to live up to its fullest potential, become censorship resistant, and take less regulatory risk, we have, in contrast to most other L1s, decided to not pre-mine any tokens, not raise capital from VCs, not have an ICO, not have a sacrifice, not give any allocation to insiders, and not give any allocations to team or founders, but instead distribute the entire supply 100% to the community. The allocations of XN will be done through various methods, chosen for the value it will bring to the X1 chain, created in close communication with the Zen community. We have Zen burn records. Every time a user burns Zen for something, a burn record is created. Part of the allocation will be airdropped to users burning Zen on all chains Zen is currently deployed on, and hopefully future ones as well. We have Zen burn auctions. Part of the allocation will be distributed with a 300-day 24-hour cycle burn auction. With Liquid Zen, you participate in a daily fair auction, competing for 1 million XZen, with pledging allowed for market creation. Estimated start of this is September-October this year. We have ZenFT conversion. Part of the allocation is dedicated to ZenFTs, giving users ability to burn or in other ways convert their batch minted Zen in ZenFTs for XZen, with probable amplifiers for the rare classes. And we have the bridge conversion. Part of the allocation is dedicated as liquidity incentives for the X1 BTC EVM bridge. This is the part we will dive deeper into now, and that's relevant for the upcoming mint rush. This is in no way a final image of how the allocation will be at the end. Be wary that the allocations can and will change over time. Also note that you have to understand that this will be distributed over time. Do not speculate based on these numbers, and if you do so at your own risk. Altogether, this allocation aimed towards creating synergetic economic forces for economic growth. There are two primary synergetic forces: XN reduction through burn with transactions and transactions with the cross-chain bridge. The more activity X1 has, the more XN would be burned with transactions, and that increases the value of X1. The more activity the bridge has, the more fees are generated to the chain. Zen being burned to fuel X1 through auction burns and chain activity is a value driver for X1 and in turn Zen itself. For more information on that, check the links in the description. We chose to deploy Zen on Ethereum and in the EVM world because it was the biggest network in where we could create programmable money with smart contracts. While building the EVM network effect, we have closely followed, participated in, and built on the revolution that Bitcoin is going through right now. Bitcoin is the first blockchain to solve the double spend problem. It's the most decentralized network, the most secure chain, with the most amount of holders, with the largest community. It has the biggest market cap with nearly $600 billion. It's a permissionless chain with immutable data. But since the Taproot upgrade and the introduction of ordinal theory, the possibilities for Bitcoin to be something more than a store of value and used for occasional peer-to-peer transactions have appeared. Inscriptions. The process of attaching arbitrary data onto individual satoshis into something called ordinals changed everything. We see a merge of these two networks happening right before our eyes, EVM and Bitcoin. They have previously been very isolated from each other, living side by side, not really interacting with each other, but that's all changing now. Users will cross, capital will cross, TVL will cross, knowledge will cross, participation, cooperation will cross. We predict that the interoperable volume will be 1000x. X1, the 100% community-owned L1 powered by Zen, needs to be in the middle of this verge and facilitate trustless traffic in between the networks. If you want to transfer capital in between the networks today, a user is dependent on a centralized exchange and fiat-backed stablecoins. These are problems that seek resolution. Part of the solution is a trustless bridge in between the networks. A bridge that can facilitate trustless swaps of ERC20 and BRC20 tokens in between Ethereum and Bitcoin. A bridge that can be the base for activity of economic and user energy to seamlessly move in between the chains. The bridge would need to align incentives between all the stakeholders in the model, ensure bridge liquidity in a balanced way, incentivize delayed gratification of liquidity providers, and generate fees to power X1 chain in perpetuity. X1 will have deflationary tokenomics, with burn in each transaction using the chain. Now we have two forces built in for fee generation contributing to the value of X1. This in turn creates demand for Zen, since you need Zen to get into X1. The bridge traffic is a demand driver of Zen. Creating the bridge is an organic process which requires building blocks and components to be created. connection in between them, incentives for liquidity to flow, with resistance for optimal game theory, longevity, and sustainability of the system. That also needs to align within itself and the whole X1 ecosystem. Creating the very best solution for this bridge will take some time and be iterated many times before we find the best, most suitable model in terms of safety, long-term sustainability, and game theory. The initial building blocks needed to build a bridge is a supply on both sides. A BRC20 token on the Bitcoin side, which already exists today, and an ERC20 token on the EVM side with a pegged 1-to-1 ratio. Holders of eVMPX on both sides will be able to single-sidedly stake, provide liquidity, their tokens into the bridge and earn fees from the bridge swaps when the bridge is being adopted and utilized. The conversion conditions are not decided. It will be organically decided whilst this is being built. But again, what we aim for is to create aligned incentives, ensure bridge liquidity in time, and incentivize delayed gratification. With conversion, the user gives up VMPX and fees generated go towards the X1 chain instead to a smart contract fully controlled by the X1 validators. We cannot today give any promises or even estimations as to when the bridge will be live, but it has a high priority. We are dedicating 300 million XN in allocation for this bridge. The XN conversion allocation will most likely be along the lines of a 3-year progressive lockup with amplified conversion and mint amplification. So VMPX on both sides are bridge liquidity tokens connecting the chains, both with a supply of a bit about 108 million. Holders can stake their tokens to earn yield with bridge swaps and exchange either type with a fixed 1-to-1 ratio. The goal is to facilitate trustless swaps between any ERC20 and any BRC20 tokens using the bridge, in order to foster cross-chain interoperability. BVMPX was launched with a fair launch on the 17th of May this year. The supply started at 0 and minted out in about 8 hours. It became the most decentralized BRC20 token with the most amount of holders on the market, which also was the goal to achieve. The effect of the mint had huge proportions. The fees skyrocketed, up over 600 sats over virtual byte. It cost the Bitcoin fee flippening for the first time in the history of Bitcoin. Miners got more paid from fees than from block rewards with on-chain transactions. We didn't break Bitcoin, but we broke the narrative that you can have low fees on the base layer. The congestion caused so much disruption so that centralized exchanges such as Binance had to halt withdrawals, forcing them to adopt the Lightning Network. $4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin tried to move away from Binance. They couldn't handle that, especially when the fees were so high. And ultimately, this affected the narrative, so that Michael Saylor went out to say that ordinals are a catalyst for adoption. The mint also told a story in terms of efficiency when it comes to creating and distributing economic energy. The mint made VMPX get a market cap of $45 million, which is insane in terms of efficiency. 3 inputs and a tweet, and you get an immutable, fungible token on Bitcoin. In terms of efficiency in token distribution, it says something. You have to realize the power of distribution. If we can make a $45 million market cap value entity in a few hours with 3 inputs and a tweet, when have you ever been able to do that? This is what we now proved with Bitcoin, just as we have on Ethereum with Zen. If the value you want to get is higher than the transaction fee you will pay for it, you will go ahead and make that transaction. It's very closely related to the gas. It's as simple as that. Again, people sometimes cry when we congest the networks, but it's not our fault. With 400 lines of code on Ethereum and 3 inputs and a tweet on Bitcoin, it totally shambles the networks. Are you going to blame the builder and users just using the current infrastructure or fix the infrastructure? It's a permissionless blockchain or not? If it isn't, then what are the rules and why? XENDEPENDENCE Day on the 4th of July 2023. The mint rush will occur. On the 4th of July, exact time to be announced, the ERC20 VMPX, the eVMPX, will be minted and distributed on the Ethereum blockchain. Participants can choose the number of tokens to mint, ranging from 200 to 39,000 per transaction, covering Ethereum gas cost. The distribution process is based on Ethereum's block production time of 12 to 15 seconds, and it will last between 8 and 12 hours. Each block with high participation should generate approximately 39,000 VMPX tokens. The trustless smart contracts ensures a fair distribution without admin keys, only requiring gas for participation. Tokens are not pre-minted, and participants retain control over minting their own VMPX tokens. Very similar to how Zen works, but the difference is only time. I will now demonstrate how the mint works. At the launch page, there will be a countdown. The chosen block height will be synced with the countdown, and when the countdown hits 0, the power slider will appear with no need to refresh the page. The page auto-updates with every new block produced. Voila! Up here you can see the max supply of eVMPX and how much that has been minted so far. You then simply adjust the power slider to make your choice of how much VMPX you want to execute in one mint. You can also use these icons here on the left and right. I'm going full degen in this tutorial and minting a full block with 39,000 VMPX. You then simply sign the request, and then you can verify and adjust the gas settings to your liking, and then execute this transaction with your wallet. You then wait for the transaction to go through and watch for the confirmation down here. Bam! You got some VMPX, man! You can see up here that we minted 39,000 VMPX, and then we can also add this to your wallet simply by clicking that, and voila! Successful mint. C'est ça. To get a rough idea of how much you will have to pay for the mint, the awesome team at XENDEPENDENCE have made a VMPX minting estimating calculator, which you can find down here. Based on the GWEI, which we can assume will be high, and your assumption of the ETH price during the mint, you can alter the power slider to your preference and hit start estimating. Their formula will then calculate at what GWEI the mint is worth in relation to the price of BVMPX. Please be aware that you are making assumptions with this and that you equal the value of B and eVMPX in doing so. But it's a very cool tool. Thank you very much, Zen Turbo. Let's play with it a little bit. If you have a gas price of 41 GWEI and we go for a full block, we start the estimation, we can see that it's a good mint. But what happens if the GWEI shoots up to, let's say, 200 GWEI, and we estimate that instead? We can see that based on these assumptions, it would have been better to buy BVMPX from the market. So let's find the sweet spot based on these assumptions. Let's try 100. It would be good to mint. And if we go somewhere around here, we can see that it starts being equal. So play around with it just to get a feeling for how the gas cost relates to the price of the mint in relation to the BVMPX price, with the assumption of GWEI, which is going to alter a lot on the 4th of July. We want to mimic the BRC20 mint on Bitcoin with the mint on Ethereum. So we made the contract look exactly the same in structure. So this is the mint block relationship. With a BRC20 mint, the deployer specifies the limit per mint, how many tokens you can mint in a single transaction. This concept is similar to how we created NFTs with VMUs, virtual minting units. So that's how we mimic the mints. Here's an example of how it relates. One block on Ethereum has a 30 million gas limit. Total supply to be minted is 108 million. The contract allows for 160 eVMPX to be minted in one VMU. You can fit 160 VMUs in one block, which yields 41,600 VMPX in one block. If we estimate that the mint will take around 8 hours, that's 28,800 seconds. Every block is around 12 seconds. So 8 hours then yields 2,400 blocks. 2,400 blocks times 41,600 VMPX then yields around 100 million VMPX. In reality, we safeguard so we don't exactly fill the whole block. We have a little safety margin, and this is based on 8 hours. So it will probably take another hour or even a few more hours, assuming the demand is high for the mint. The power slider simply represents a gas optimizer for how much of a block you're willing to pay for. It lets you adjust the gas usage based on how much you're willing to burn in fees. It ranges from 1 to 195, where 195 is 90% of the block. It's basically like batch minting, but we call it power. You can take a full block if you're willing to pay more gas. A single transaction costs more gas than the batch in proportion, because every transaction builds a record within a blockchain. Many single transactions pay more gas because every one of them contains records. So with power or batch mint, you're paying a little less per transaction on average. Launch! The site for the mint rush of eVMPX on the 4th of July 2023 will be getvmpx.com. Exact time will be announced and a countdown will be set up. You can already now try out the mint at test.getvmpx.com. Stay informed with potential changes and updates on these Twitter accounts and in the official X1 Telegram, which is the best place to be during the launch. Follow Mr. Jack Levin and Zen_crypto on Twitter and join our X1 Telegram where we can answer all of your questions. To participate in the mint, all you need is gas in ETH in your wallet, as I've tutorialized. You should try it out on test.getvmpx.com to familiarize yourself with the procedure. Also check out the VMPX minting estimation calculator at zenturbo.io and get a touch for the price of the mint in relation to GUI. I think you should also ask yourself initially how much you're willing to spend on this mint rush and not have more ETH in your wallet than you're willing to participate with. And there's 3 specific reasons for that. Number 1, you are participating in a mint for a token that will be used for creating a functional bridge of which is still under construction. The exact value proposition for that token is still in progress. Take that into consideration. There is risk involved. Number 2, any rushed events triggers your primal brain and you will get caught into FOMO. This happens to everyone and it's important that you don't let it take control over your investment decision. And number 3, congested events will lead to failed transactions. And if they fail, you still have paid the validator. There's nothing we can do to stop that. It's totally up to you how you facilitate your gas settings. If you lose money in the mint, we won't and we can't refund you for anything of that. We are not taking your money for this mint. You are interacting straight with the protocol. Think of the rush as a real rush. Lots of failed transactions are going to be part of the process. Failed transactions are casualties of the game and part of the transferred value. If you're not prepared to lose money, don't be trigger happy. People are going to set the gas to aggressive. It's going to be a bidding war. I advise you to read zencrypto.io team's very well articulated article on this matter, on how to not get wrecked. When participating in a network while it's being heavily congested, it's very normal that your transaction gets stuck. But there is a trick you can use to cancel your stuck transaction. I will now mimic a stuck transaction by setting the GUI super low. So I'm sending some ETH to wherever. And currently the GUI is around 39. So let's go to advanced and set it to something super low, like 5 or something like that. And go ahead and confirm this transaction. So now it's going to be pending, and it's going to be pending for a very long time, and probably it won't go through because the GUI was set to 5 and the GUI is now over 40. So how do we cancel this transaction? So first we go into settings, advanced, and then scroll down and make sure that customize transaction nonce is toggled on. That's the very first step. Now, then you go back to the stuck transaction, click on it, and see the nonce number 7. So we remember that. Now we go and copy our address and send another transaction to ourselves with 0 amount. Click next, and then scroll down, and here in custom nonce we select 7, which was the nonce for the stuck transaction. And then we can go to market, and if we're really eager to get rid of the stuck transaction, we can adjust the gas settings accordingly, and then we hit confirm. This procedure will remove the stuck transaction, and your wallet is good to go again in most cases. There we go. So today, if you're new in the ecosystem, welcome. We gave you an introduction to Zen and the impact we have on the networks. Try to mint some Zen at zen.network. You also got a glimpse of X1 and what we're actively trying to achieve with it by merging the two biggest ecosystems. Then, by now, you know everything about the upcoming mint rush on Ethereum on the 4th of July, XENDEPENDENCE Day. Be safe, be degen, be Asinian. Over and out, 10-2. This is Zen2. Ja, jag tycker det är bra alltså. Ja, vi kör på det där. Dubbla suspar.